The WTO is associated with millions of goods, services, ideas and various technologies. It also implies imports, exports, custom rates, disputes and of course prices. The purpose of WTO market program is to destroy all the barriers between buyers and sellers because we know everything about prices. Is it more beneficial to export grain or flour? Why the milling industry of Kazakhstan faces difficulties? How does the accession of Kazakhstan to the WTO affect the grain and flour markets? This year, the government of Egypt purchases wheat from local farmers at world prices. Earlier, wheat was purchased at an inflated price in order to encourage local producers. Food crisis in Venezuela resulted in bread war. Bakers are punished for making more expensive sweet pastries. The domestic law provides that 90% of flour should be used for bread making. Turkey suspends issuing licenses for tax-free import of Russia wheat. A 130% duty on imports of Russian grain can be introduced in the country that would mean termination of its deliveries. Grain and flour production are intricately linked sectors of the Kazakhstan economy. They are strategically important aspects both for economy and policy. In 2016, Kazakhstan harvested about 18 million tons of wheat, almost 3.5 million tons of barley, 350,000 tons of oats, 64,000 tons of millet, more than 502,000 tons of rice, and 736.5 thousand tons of leguminous and other grain crops. Annually, Kazakhstan produces approximately 17 to 18 million tons of grain. According to the Ministry of Agriculture, the domestic consumption of grain in the country is about 9 million tons. I think that this is a little bit too much and it should not exceed 7.5 to 8 million tons. Kazakhstan is included into the top 10 wheat producers and exporters. Domestic grain growers produce more wheat than the country needs and more than conventional markets can receive. Supposedly, the situation with exports looks simple and economically viable. But is it so profitable to export nothing but grain? Specialists consider that selling of flour, a finished product of Kazakhstani origin, yields much more profit. See it yourself. We sell all the grain and that's all. But if we sell flour, we shall enable the operation of milling plants, transport and provide with a job a lot of people. So, it is clear that the higher is the contributed value of a product, the higher is its sales efficiency. Flour millers have always been the major buyers of grain, but since recently, the volume of their purchases has significantly reduced. Initially, our state was more oriented on exports of grain because historically, Kazakhstan has always been a grain exporter. But flour export is a phenomenon quite new for Kazakhstan because the country started to export its flour in large amounts only 10 to 12 years ago. In 2016, Kazakhstan delivered to export markets about 2.3 million tons of flour. These are high rates, but experts are convinced that the country's flour milling industry has a much greater potential. Along with that, the accession of Kazakhstan to the WTO had little effect on grain and flour markets. Export routes remained the same because delivering our flour to European countries is too expensive. However, new mechanisms enabling to establish relations between countries' trading partners have emerged. I don't think that the accession to the WTO was critical for the grain sector. However, there were some advantages. The thing is that WTO members should follow certain production and trade rules. One of the conditions for the accession to the WTO is prohibition on export subsidies for transportation of agricultural products. Kazakhstan exports its grain mainly to Central Asian countries, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, as well as to Iran and Russia. Small amounts are also delivered to some EU countries, such as Austria and Italy. In 2016, total exports of grain to Central Asian countries exceeded 4 million tons, in particular to Afghanistan 1.8 million tons, to Iran about 500,000 tons, to Azerbaijan and Georgia 200,000 tons, to Russia 900,000 tons, and to other world markets also 900,000 tons. This year, Kazakhstan, for the first time, exported its grain to Vietnam. It implies the official opening of the transit corridor for exports of bread grain from Kazakhstan via China. Iran is also interested in grain produced in Kazakhstan. As of 2016, the turnover with Iran reached $600 million. From these, 600 million, more than 90% were exports from Kazakhstan. This means that grain exports in our country exceed grain imports. Therefore, we have a positive trade balance. We mainly export grain and metal products. Can you choose the right type of bread? Grain products is a prospective area of agriculture. How much will Kazakhstan increase its grain exports to China? Few people in our country have meals without bread. So do you know the key characteristics of good bread? They are as follows. The crust of bread should be free of burnt spots, indentations or cracks. White bread should have golden and rye bread amber color. Once compressed, the bread should immediately regain its initial shape. Breadcrumb should not be sticky and stretchy. This is a sign of its contamination with fungi or potato bacillus. The shelf life of white bread is 24 hours and of rye bread 36 hours. Bread wrapped into a packaging film can be stored 48 hours. The world market of flour continues to grow. In order to increase profits from the milling industry, Kazakhstan needs to establish a well-designed logistics system, enlarge the list of its trading partners and increase the product range, the experts say. We are a landlocked country, regardless of whether we want it or not. We have a limited access to the sea. This narrows the potentialities of our market. Perhaps it is much more profitable to export deeply processed products such as dry wheat, gluten or starch instead of grain and flour. The higher is the added value of the product, the higher is economic efficiency. Green products are a separate and quite important area. Organic food is one of the most powerful and in-demand trends of the modern economy. Not long ago, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Mongolia and Kyrgyzstan signed a cooperation agreement on organic agriculture development. A concept of the agricultural sector development has been adopted. Its slogan is not to produce that can be produced, but to produce that is in demand at the market. That's correct and logical. From the point of view of the global food security, Kazakhstan no doubt has a significant competing priorities. Indeed, grain and flour make up 80% of Kazakhstan's exports and 90% of all exported grain is wheat. This is one of the most important ingredients of people's diets around the world. According to the US Department of Agriculture, over the last 4 years, the annual growth of wheat consumption all over the world made up 1.5% and reached approximately 70 kilograms per person. According to the new state program for the agricultural sector development for 2017-2020, grain production is expected to reach 12.4 million tons. By 2021, total exports of grain, including flour, should reach 8.2 million. From this amount, 6.7 million tons will be exported to the regular trading partners and 1.5 million tons will be delivered to markets of China and other foreign countries. After the accession to the WTO, China imposed quotas regulating the amount of imported wheat. Currently, it should not exceed 9,600,000 tons. Over the last 3 years, exports of wheat to China significantly increased. Thus, in 2014-2015, it made up 110,000 tons. In 2015-2016, it was already 414,000 tons. This year, it is expected that sales of bread wheat to China will reach 500,000 tons and in the nearest 3 years, 1 million tons.